What is Algebra 1? This is Mr. Tokar again. For Chapter 4, we are still talking about functions and relations, and this time we are going to be using what's called function notation to evaluate. Now, we skipped a couple pages of our notes. The 3 pages before this, the next couple pages are evaluating by hand. We're going to skim past those and skip right to using Desmos today. So make sure you open up Desmos, split your screen, and follow along while taking your notes. So here is Chapter 4, Function Notation and Evaluating Functions. Now, let's talk about some important vocab before we whip out our Desmos. So, functions. Okay, we use what's called function notations when we talk about functions. So, a function is a relation in which every domain corresponds to exactly one range, which means every x value has one y value. So if we look at function notation, there's 2 parts. First, on the left side, we see this is called f of x. It's the function's name. The name of the function is f, and this is called f of x. The reason there's an x here is that means we plug x values into this function to get y value. So f of x ends up being our y value, our range. On the right side of our equal sign is the expression. This is what actually changes our number. So I could plug in a 1 and I would get a y value out. Let's pick 2. If I plug in 2 to this function, 2 times 2 is 4, minus 1 is 3. So when I plug in 2, out comes a 3. So let's look at an example of what evaluating is. Evaluating is when I take a number for x, I plug it in, and simplify. My answer is always just one number. So here's the same function. F of x equals 2x minus 1. Now let's say we want to plug in negative 1 into this function. So it'll become f of negative 1. We replaced x with negative 1 equals 2 times negative 1 minus 1. Instead of typing in an x, I typed in negative 1. And then when I simplify this, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Minus 1 is negative 3, so that's our answer. So again, we're going to keep going. We're going to skip doing it by hand. Okay, we're going to skip doing it by hand, and you are going to go to part 2. Evaluating functions with Desmos. So we are going to cheat and use Desmos in order to do these problems, which you're going to be able to do on the OST. Remember, the biggest thing is you just got to make sure you're typing everything in correctly. So let's evaluate the function f. So first step is entering the function into Desmos. So click into Desmos and type it in exactly. F of x equals negative 2x. If you don't know how to do our little exponent, pull up your keyboard. It's right here. F of negative 2x to the power of negative 2 minus 4x plus 7. Now I can see what my graph looks like over here, but we don't really need to do any graphing. So my goal is to now answer these 4 questions. Okay. First question, what is f of 2? In my next line down, I'm going to just type that in, f of 2. And my answer pops up. The answer is negative 9. That is it. That is all you need to do, negative 9. Okay? Next, it says, what is f of negative 3? So I type in f, parenthesis, negative 3, parenthesis, and I get my answer. My answer is 1. That's it. That's how we evaluate a function with the help of Desmos. Okay, we keep going. Now, question C and D, same thing, but they're asked a different way. So sometimes the OST will just say, what's f of 2? What is f of negative 3? Sometimes it'll say, what is f of x when x is 1.5? And that just means we're doing f of 1.5. Type it in, negative 3.5. On these problems, it is totally okay to write your answer as decimals, negative 3.5. Okay. D, what is f of 1/2? again, f parenthesis 1/2 parenthesis f when x is 1/2, or f of 1/2, is 4.5. And you're done. 4.5. That's all you need to do. So, to evaluate a function with Desmos, you first have to type in your function. Desmos needs to know what the function is, and then you can ask it to evaluate it for you. If you ever did need to turn it into a fraction, there's that fraction button that we've used before. You can always use that to turn it into a fraction. But most of the time it doesn't matter. Okay, let's try another one. So let's delete all. Okay, this time my function is h. So I'm going to type in h of x equals 1/2 x minus 4.5. Always double check that you're plugging it in correctly. You would hate to get a question wrong just from typing it in wrong. And then in my next line, I want to know what is h of 0. H of 0 is negative 4.5. What is h of negative 6.5? Type it in. I get negative 7.75. What is h of x when x is 21? Well, again, I'm just typing in f of 21. It's the same question. Oh, sorry, h of 21. It's the same question asked a different way. The answer is 6. And what is, this should say h. What is h of x when x is 2/3? H of 2/3. Here's an example where, we can't write a repeating number, so we can turn that one into a fraction. We get negative 25/6. We don't want to write a repeating decimal. And that's it. That's how you evaluate using Desmos, okay? Type in your function, make sure it's typed in correctly, and then answer your questions. And just look out for, sometimes they like to ask it in a slightly different way. Okay, last one. Here's evaluating using different representations. So, sometimes we're given a table, sometimes we're given a function, sometimes we're given the graph. I'm going to show you how to do them all these different ways. So, first one, f of 4. So let's look at, here's function f. We want to know what is f of 4. So when I plug in 4 for x, so I'm going to go over to 4 for x. Here's when x is 4. All I need to do is follow my line up until I hit my graph, and that's where I hit. When x is 4, then y is also 4. Let's try again. F of x when x is negative 1. At negative 1, which is right here, if I follow my line up, that's a terribly non-straight line. When I follow this line up, I hit at 7. Okay, so graphs are a little bit harder. You go to the x value and then you go up to your graph, or if the graph was down here, you would go down to your graph. Okay, let's look at g of 0. This is the ones we just did. This is our function g, so we type it in. G of x equals 3x minus 1. And I want to know what is g of 0. G of 0. G of 0 is negative 1. And then I want to know what is g of 1.5. G of 1.5 is 3.5. Okay, now we have a table, h of 4. When x is 4, this is my function h. When x is 4, y is negative 7. When h of x when x is 8, when x is 8, the function is equal to negative 9. And that's it. that is everything you need to know about functions and relations. Use Desmos when you can. We skipped doing it by hand. I am not in this week, so we're going to cheat the system. We're just going to do it with Desmos. So, good work, everyone. You got some work coming up the next couple of days. Make sure you get it done. Make sure you get it submitted so I can give you a grade. Telcar is out.